This is a glass of corn moonshine, 50% ABV, but it's hiding a little secret. It also tastes like banana and peanut. I'm calling it the King's Envy, and I'm gonna show you how to make it from scratch. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, this is Still It, and a little while ago, I tried distilling peanuts, and it kind of worked. Part of the run tasted delicious, part of the run tasted like a weird, oily, oxidized mess. But thankfully, I know a guy who's had a whole bunch of success in distilling peanuts. In fact, Big Nick Calo won an episode of Moonshiner's Master Distiller with a recipe he called Hunka Hunka Burning Love.
Hunka Hunka Burning Love over here. Peanut butter with just a hint on the banana. You were catering toward the king. I think you made him proud. You can only have one master distiller. And Nick, you're the next master distiller, my friend.
If you want to hear more about what Nick's doing, his specific recipe, behind the scenes sort of insight into the show, all of that good stuff, I'm going to be publishing a podcast here on the channel and on all the podcatchers in a few days, so you can catch up on all of that. But for now, what you need to know is that the recipe I'm doing today is heavily inspired by Nick's Hunka Hunka Burning Love. I've tweaked it for the equipment I'll be using, available ingredients, and personal taste. Let's get stuck into the mash, where I have 35 litres of strike water heated up and ready to go. I'm adding in 5 kilos of malted barley into the strike water. The barley in this is primarily just for enzyme addition to make the whole mash work. If you wanted to ditch the barley and use more corn and use bottled enzymes, you're more than welcome to. We're also going in with 1 kilo of wheat and 1 kilo of oats. A little bit of wheat to give a tip of the hat to the bread in the sandwich. The oats, just to kind of smooth the final product out, give a little bit of silkiness. And of course, this is corn moonshine, so we got to get that percentage of corn up. I'm going with 8 kilograms of corn. Today I'll be using malted corn, which means I don't need to gelatinize it or boil it. If you don't have malted corn, of course, you can do the additional step. Nick, in his recipe, used a large proportion of really interesting heirloom corns. If I had it, I would love to use it. I can't get it, so I'm not. Once all mashed in, the mash was looking pretty thick and I had a little bit of room left at the top of the mash tun, so I eyeballed in 4 or 5 litres of water, waited for it to hit 65 degrees Celsius and let it sit for 45 minutes. You may have noticed that I've switched from my standard black to grey blue shirt in this video. My family find it hilarious. They've been giving me stick all week calling it Jesse's festive grey shirt, and I'm not sure whether to be insulted or honoured by that. But regardless, all of the shirts I wear, just about, are from Into the AM, the sponsor of today's show. Why are my drawers totally full of Into the AM products? Because they fit well, they're comfortable, the fabric feels amazing, and when I'm feeling a little upbeat, their graphics are absolutely insanely dope. Into the AM is so awesome that we have teamed up with them 3 separate times to create 3 separate shirts specifically for you guys that have a whole bunch of awesome distilling Easter eggs hidden away in them. I think they're absolutely awesome, and all 3 are still for sale. But perhaps you already have those t-shirts. Don't worry, Into the AM are constantly coming out with absolutely A-tier graphics for their shirts. I'll put a few up on screen now, some of the new ones that I really like. So if you're digging Into the AM like me, I'll put a link in the description down below, which will give you 10% off. I like to come back to the mash tun at about halfway through the mash and give it a really good agitation just to make sure that there's no dead spots in the mash and kind of ensure efficiency of the mash. So at 45 minutes, I came back, gave it a really good stir, checked the temperature, which is really easy with these, recirculating PID mash tuns, and let it go for another 45 minutes. With the mash completed, it's time to drain all of our liquid into the fermenter. Once again, very easy with a ball valve on the bottom. Start draining it into the fermenter, and today I decided to lift the grain bed up a little bit, and when the liquid of the mash dropped below the bottom of the grain basket, I just started scooping the sparge water into the top. Takes a little bit longer, it's a little bit less faffing around. I like to do things differently every now and again. In total, I used about 25 litres of sparge water. We're going to deal with the banana later on in the process, and the secret to the peanut situation is coming up very soon. But first, 3.5 kilograms of honey dissolved into a little bit of water and mixed into the fermenter. I'm hoping that this is going to give a really subtle honey sweetness on the back end of the final product that'll augment and boost the banana flavor specifically. But of course, banana and honey is great. Honey and peanut butter is great. All three together, better than the sum of its parts. Just like the sandwich. Now it's time to deal with the peanut problem. How do we get a good peanut flavor throughout the run? And Big Nick Calo gave me the secret to this, and funnily enough, a bunch of you guys suggested exactly the same thing in the last video, which is, of course, powdered peanuts, peanut flour, powdered peanut butter, whatever you need to search to find the stuff somewhat near you. That is the answer. And I'm hearing this from multiple sources, so I'm guessing there's got to be something to this, right? 300 grams of the peanut flour into the fermenter, and we're going to give it a really good blitzing up, a really good stirring to incorporate all the ingredients, but also to oxygenate the wash. And it's time to pitch our yeast. I'm going to use AM1 today. It is a single malt whiskey yeast that has a tendency to add really nice, kind of light, orchard fruity esters into the mix, and I think that's going to pair really well. 5 days later, and the wash has fermented out dry. It's time for distillation. I had intended on putting this all into one run, but I got a little bit carried away with the sparging, which to be honest is probably a good thing. Gave me a little bit more product in the end. So what I'm going to do is take about 30 litres out of the fermenter, put it into the still and run it as a stripping run, collect all of those low wines, drain the still out of all the muck left in there, throw that away, add the low wines back in, and all of the rest of the wash. We're going to add another 400 grams of peanut flour into the mix, but you're probably wondering, what about the bananas? Here's the plan. 2.5 kilos of bananas, topped, tailed, split down the middle, lined up on trays and put into the oven at 220 degrees Celsius, fan forced for about 35 minutes until you start seeing a bit of color on the outside, and then turn down to 200 degrees just until they're completely cooked through. I have also heard a bunch of reports from you, thank you team, that adding the banana skins into the mix gives even more flavor. I haven't tried that yet, and I'm a little bit nervous of it because the last time I did this, the flavor was amazing. So what I'm gonna do is separate all of the bananas from their skins, add them into the still, and then put half of the banana skins in as well. Once again, give it a little blitz just to incorporate the peanut flour and the bananas, and time for distillation. It is time to rebuild the still. I'm going to put a sight glass at the bottom with no plate in it. It is purely a puke protector. It's a lot of P alliteration in this video. It wasn't planned, it's just happened. And then another 3 sight glasses above that with plates in it. The idea here is that Nick Calo's recipe apparently is a real sledgehammer in terms of flavor, which is awesome. I love that. I thought it would be interesting to dial it back just a little bit, so I'm looking for somewhere around 80–85% average over the run, and I think 3 plates should give that to me with a 1.5 stripping run. Time to get the still up to temperature, get the column all balanced out, slowly back off on the water flow going into the reflux condenser, and start collecting product out the pointy end. I'm going to take 4 shots, of course, and discard those, and then heads. I gauge this purely on sense and taste. Once that kind of jaggy, almost astringent, kind of rubbery flavor went away, I called it hearts and just switched straight over into collecting that way. I did run into a little bit of issues in the tails where the peanut flavor was starting to really push through into the tailsy note. I think that Nick's way of dealing with this with a thumper is an excellent way to go about it. Once again, there'll be more details of that in the podcast. I could have also stripped everything and made some tails cuts on the stripping run to kind of push that peanut flavor further down into good products rather than it being mixed up with the tails. But all in all, I'm super freaking happy with this. I proofed it down to 50% ABV because, I don't know, it's moonshine, man. Like, 40% seems a little bit weak. So 50% it is today. Let's taste it. All right, we have the final product here. It's smelling absolutely freaking amazing, I gotta say, guys. But first, a huge, huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you, Patreons, for being the people that support us day in, month out. We thoroughly appreciate it. I can't do this without you, so thank you so much, team. We really do appreciate it. Don't mind the steam rising in shot, if you can see that. I've got another project boiling away down there. But straight away, big, caramelized, juicy banana aroma with a hint, just a hint of honey in the background. The aromas are awesome. Honestly, mostly banana, a little bit of the corn moonshine coming in as well. I don't get the grains specifically. There's a little bit more there than I would expect from just straight corn though. Anyway, cheers, team. Yeah, Nick, you're onto something here, man. This is freaking delicious. Big, juicy banana flavor up front, corn moonshine in the middle, and as the corn moonshine sort of fades away, you start to get into a interesting play back and forth between almost like a rum-like banana ester. It changes from the caramelized cooked banana when it first hits your mouth to more of a rummy ester on the back end. And that kind of flip-flops between a peanut flavor and the banana, or rum. Peanut banana. So big kudos to Nick for coming up with this recipe, and and even more so, I would say, for sharing it with us. That's pretty cool, because he does have this commercially available now. I'll put some details on who he is, what he's doing, and I'll update the description with the podcast link when it comes out. Absolutely delicious. Thoroughly suggest you try this at home if you're into having novelty drinks. Isn't quite the right word, but novelty drinks around the house. This is pretty awesome. So keep on chasing the craft, guys. I'll catch you next time. See ya.